Hi everyone, it's Elijah. Today I'll be discussing the future of MapleStory and Nexon. Now, a little background on why I'm doing this video. I was debating whether or not I will continue playing MapleStory because there was a lot of uncertainty in the changes they're planning to make. So I did a little bit of digging about the company, some of their core values, finances, and the long-term goals they had in mind to get an understanding of why they make certain decisions and how that affects us as players. And the results were pretty interesting, so I decided to make a video to share with y'all. So let's get started. Nexon is a video game publisher founded in 1994 by Jungju Kim and Jake Song. Their first game, Nexus: The Kingdom of the Winds, was one of the world's first graphics-based massively multiplayer online game. They were also one of the pioneers of microtransactions in a free-to-play business model. China and Korea are the biggest moneymakers, while North America and Europe accounts for less than 13%. The CEO of Nexon, Owen Mahoney, has stated, quote, "We've made several actions in that area to improve our performance. Although North America and Europe are currently unprofitable, we think market size in North America and Europe are very large, and we believe that there are very significant opportunities in both regions." End quote. It's weird to think that Nexon America isn't profitable, but if you pay close attention to their actions, it'll start to make sense. I'll give you a few examples. They updated the Avatar stamp shop a few times in 2018, which is quite an improvement over what felt like once a year. I expect them to continue updating it a bit more frequently since it encourages players to spend more, especially in Reboot. Next, they did a limited time Maple Stamps bundle in the cash shop of February 2019, which gave you free stamps to exchange for other items. They announced the MapleStory Merc store with reasonable prices and shipping costs. And lastly, they are updating the Gachapon and finally adding an option for Reboot players. Seriously, Nexon, you're giving me more reasons to go MVP Diamond again. Please stop. This is just a start. I'm sure they're going to find more ways to monetize MapleStory because it's actually a key title in every region. So what's the next best thing to do? Expand on that franchise. Have you ever thought about why they released MapleStory 2, MapleStory M, and even Europe Reboot out of nowhere? And the Refer a Friend program, which, by the way, they did back in 2008. It might have been successful then, which is probably why they brought it back now. Think about why Nexon invested a lot of money into running the first MapleStory Fest for free, and even paid influencers to cover the event. Mahoney sums this up very clearly. Quote, "When should you invest your marketing dollars to acquire a user? The simple answer, only when you're going to retain that user for a long time, meaning more than long enough to get your money back, net of all the costs of acquiring them in building and monetizing the actual game." End quote. So if you ever felt like MapleStory was taking too much of your time, well, that's exactly the point. The longer you play the game, the more comfortable you'll feel purchasing their merchandise and NX. Their goal is to grow the Western player base to a size where they can get a return on their investment. So, let's move on to what makes a sustainable online game. Thankfully, Mahoney has done several presentations on this subject. I'll simplify the information so it's not too long and boring. According to him, there are 4 important mental models to keep in mind, but we'll only be discussing 3 of them: product lifecycle, gameplay, and retention. A product lifecycle is measured based on how a game generates revenue over time. Traditional video games and mobile games make most of their revenue within the short time frame after its initial release. In contrast, successful online games like MapleStory has their revenue growing steadily over time. Nexon's letter to shareholders fiscal year 2018 states, quote, "We think of online games as simulated virtual worlds, replete with politics, culture, and economy among players who control virtual characters. This means the game world can evolve and grow over time. From a development perspective, this means proper management of the economy and in-game items can be more important to the success of a game than linear storyline or graphics." End quote. Notice the last sentence here though. Proper management of the economy and in-game items. This actually explains all the gameplay changes they've been making to fix the progression of MapleStory. The biggest factor ruining the economy in regular worlds are hackers. they bought to farm a ton of mesos and item drops and even duplicate items. Then they resell everything to make a profit. This creates inflation in the marketplace and ruins the overall health of the game. In Korea MapleStory, this isn't a huge problem since they require some form of identification to create an account. Nexon Korea even pays people to find exploits in their game. In comparison, global MapleStory allows up to 5 account creations per day with no identification check. However, reading a post from an anonymous hacker in the MapleStory subreddit reveals that behind the scenes, Nexon America has been working diligently to reduce hacking in the game. It's no surprise that they're publicly sharing the ban data as a way to show the community that they're taking action and placing fear on potential hackers. But hackers aren't the only problem. For a long time, players were able to farm at Malaysia and Singapore at any level with no meso reduction, meaning a level 250 kana could get the same rates as a level 150 kana. Since those maps didn't come from KMS and the GMS developers were too lazy, it remained untouched until December 2017, where they finally decided to fix it. Then, in October 2018, removed Singapore completely. But I think it's interesting how only Singapore was removed. Both of these areas were highly abusable for meso farming, but in Singapore you could obtain the Ghost Ship Exorcist badge through a quest. It's one of 2 badges that can have a potential, with the Sengoku Hakase badge being an event exclusive. Here's the thing though, when asked if Sengoku High would ever return, Dennis Savage Ace Bernardo, the producer of MapleStory, responded, quote, "Likely, yeah. We don't have any active plans to never bring it back," end quote. And when asked if potable badges would return, quote, "We don't have any plans to bring those back at the moment," end quote. These vague responses don't mean it's a permanent removal. If they didn't have plans to never bring it back, it means Nexon didn't remove the Ghost Ship Exorcist badge for the sake of making the Genesis badge, aka the Black Mage badge, look more appealing. I actually believe it was to balance out event-only best-in-slot equipments. Let's talk about rings. Before 25 Star Forcing came out, the best rings to get were Synergy Ring, Reboot Cosmos Ring, SS Master Ring, etc. These were all event-only rings. After 25 Star came out in July 2018, all of the best-in-slot rings became available at any time, which includes Golux Rings, Kana's Treasure, and Meister, 2 of the 3 which KMS doesn't have. You might be thinking, why do they even need to restrict it to events in the first place? Well, from a game developer's perspective, how do you entice players to come back to your game? Limited time events. Instead of being able to get every single best-in-slot equipment at any time, players would need to wait until an event happens to obtain it, which slightly slows down their progress. And if they stop playing MapleStory by that time, it's another reason to start playing again. But why would Nexon want to slow down the progression by limiting some of the best equipments to events, removing Kana farming, and nerfing Kishin? Remember, their goal is to make MapleStory a long-lasting virtual world for their players. The game must be optimized for longevity, which is also why they time-gate Arcane Force. At the same time, there must be a seamless flow of progression within the game. If things are too easy, you'll get bored and quit the game. If things are too challenging, you'll be frustrated and quit the game. Which brings us to our final point, retention. Every online game has players actively joining and leaving, so how is Nexon planning to maintain their player base in a growing competitive industry? By creating more positive experiences. For a brief time frame in 2018, every time you closed MapleStory, a survey popped up requesting you to rate and provide feedback. You know that annoying thing that opened up in Internet Explorer? They analyzed the data and noticed that the same player who logged in multiple times per day had different responses. This led to an interesting analysis. The type of player you are, the people you meet in-game, and the things that make a big impression on you has a greater impact on the fun factor of the game. Nexon came to the conclusion that having high-quality game content alone doesn't make your game successful. In other words, they need to make sure the game adapts to what makes you happy. But obviously these are all dynamic elements that can't really be controlled. I mean, can you imagine Nexon controlling who you meet in-game? Or can they? Introducing Nexon's biggest investment, artificial intelligence. An AI isn't restricted by its past experiences. Therefore, it has a more creative approach to discovering fun factors and revealing blind spots compared to humans. It's also capable of making real-time data analysis, like determining whether you're a solo player or prefer party play. Think of it similar to how Spotify uses what music you listen to curate a playlist of songs you might like. Or Steam, which uses your game library to give you recommendations for other games. By using this information, the AI could place you into a channel with people with similar preferences and result in more positive experiences. For example, let's say you are a new player that dies a lot near Hennessy's. The AI would detect that and place you into a channel with more players to resurrect you, leading to a positive experience. Another thing would be feedback. Players are able to improve their skills by getting advice from other players. But what if an AI can help you out instead, providing a dynamic feedback system? There's a wide range of uses for machine learning, and it's clear that Nexon's goal for AI is to positively execute randomly occurring interactions to increase the player retention rate. The craziest thing is that they've already been making efforts to collect this data. Remember our mentee and successor, Tobin Hair Hero? He was an NPC during an event in October 2018. At the end of each quest, he would ask you a question regarding MapleStory. These quests gave very good rewards, but you couldn't get them if you didn't answer the question. Very clever, Nexon! If they're able to develop and train their AI successfully, it could lead to a dramatic shift in how the game is played and potentially increase the game population by keeping their players happy. So, what does this all mean? Well, Nexon America is finally getting their act together to fix the game, grow their community, and has a clear game plan to do so. And as long as Mahoney believes in the potential of North America and Europe, the game won't really die. In fact, this is the reason why they merged Europe and North America into one company to streamline the Western development process. So don't be surprised if you see a MapleStory Fest in Europe within a couple of years. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for more content on MapleStory and other gaming content as well.